Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 20th meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. As always, please take note of every exit in the room in case of emergency. And now join me as we pledge our fealty to the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First, just one little bit of housekeeping. We're going to wish Board Member Weiser a very happy birthday tomorrow in advance. And it is one of those milestone birthdays. I'll be celebrating the same, as you know, very shortly.
Did you bring cake or anything for
No.
us?
No, you were supposed to bring cake.
Oh, was I?
Yeah.
The first item on the agenda is a new public hearing for the Enclave at Hyde Park. This is a request for an extension of the special use permit and site plan approvals, in which time to complete substantial construction, and a 2-year extension for all site plan deadlines. Making a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. No abstentions or nays. Is there anyone here who would like to speak about this project? Seeing that I recognize almost everybody, I'm guessing that there is no one to speak about the Enclave. Any comments from consultants? Then let me just point out before I get a motion to close, or any questions from the board? So in this instance, we're not going to take any action tonight because we need to update the infrastructure bond. So Mr. Sotero will be working with Highway Superintendent Fisher to come up with new numbers to update the performance bond, et cetera. Anybody have any questions about that? And Pete asked us to wait, I think, for 2 meetings, so we have 60 days after the close of a public hearing in which to take action. You wanted a 30-day, so August 17th. So we'll loop that in. I think it's August 17th, Cynthia, on the agenda.
Yes, 3rd and 17th.
There being no other comments, making a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for Camp Victory Lake. This is a master plan as well as the first phase for a church or sanctuary with some additional improvements located at 277 Crum Elbow Road, which is at Crum Elbow and Cardinal Road. Making a motion to reopen the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Not having Chris here tonight
know.
caused the pause at first, but you picked right back up. There's no one from the applicants representing this project tonight because we have no updates. As I believe all of you know, they did receive preliminary comments from the Department of Public Works, as well as, I believe, some preliminary ones from DEC. So they're going to wait to submit to DCPW, as well as to resubmit to us when they have those comments incorporated. Anybody have any questions? Make a motion to adjourn this public hearing to September the 21st.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. And just so everyone knows, the 21st was when the applicants more or less requested the adjournment for it, because this gives them plenty of extra time in which to respond. Next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for Hyde Park Quick Stop. This is an improvement of an existing fueling station and small convenience store located at 4912 Albany Post Road. Making a motion to reopen the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is another application, ladies and gentlemen, where there is no one from the applicant present because they did receive comments from Department of Transportation as well as DEC. The major point that was made by the Department of Transportation is they would like a one-way in and one-way out from the two curb cuts, which would cause some changes to their internal circulation, particularly as it relates, I believe, to the diesel fueling station. So they are not here tonight and ask us just to adjourn this off to the August 17th, which gives them a little bit more time in which to submit as well. Any comments from the consultants? Any comments from the board? I get a motion to adjourn this August 17th.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Yes, I was just telling Mr. Lapine that we were going to get through this pretty quickly, so we need to have the Bellafield team here.
They're here.
Next item on the agenda is Bellafield Phase 2 Final Development Plan. Gentlemen, ladies, come on up. So longtime observers of the Hyde Park Planning Board and Town Board will know that at the very end of last year, we were able to give an approval to the concept plan. And Ms. Van Tile, thank you so much for providing all the materials. I have to admit, I could have gone back and looked myself, but it was all, there was just too much stuff done at the end, and I forgot some of the niceties that you pointed out for us today. which include, I sent that out to the rest of the board, but it did specifically give the ability for the planning board to locate the sign barn, we'll call it, inside the 150-foot setback, and it gives a lot of other powers to us as well. So we'll be addressing, pardon me?
Oh, no, I was just saying I'm not sure everyone received that email.
They received it directly, you received it
Yeah.
directly, and I forwarded it on to the
Okay.
planning board members. I probably did not copy our secretary, because I thought she was copied the first time. Sorry, okay, sorry.
Notice, sorry, I usually try to.
I'll forward it back over to you as well, sorry. Okay, let me turn it over to you guys, Mr. Boudreau.
Well, thank you very much. It's, gosh, it's been the last time we were here, and that was through Zoom, was in December, and then all of last year. So, wow, it's great to be back. Thank you for getting us on the agenda. Hot off the press is this PowerPoint, and again, I want to thank you for getting us on the agenda tonight. So, this is the presentation. I'm going to introduce the team. We have the Reynolds team here tonight. I wanted to back up and kind of go through the timeline how we got here. There's a lot that we did from January until now, so I'll get the board updated on that. Introduce the Phase 2 project, which we submitted on the 5th. Go through the site plan and then the building architecture. We have a separate PDF on that. And then we're interested to hear any feedback that we could get tonight. So again, thank you very much. So, of course, myself, Larry Boudreau. To my right is Jennifer, as you know, and Tom Mulroy. With the T-Rex team is Larry Pelletier. Just want to make sure he's there. To my left, of course, is Chris Laporta, which I'm happy to have him part of the team again. We started many years ago. Also tonight is the Reynolds team, and I like these guys. So there's Lou, Matt, and Adam. We have been thrilled working with them. Actually, I think it goes back to December when we first met them. And they fell in love with the vision that we have for Belfield, so we're working and moving forward with them. So, Chris, hit the next slide. So just to get you updated on what we've been doing since January. So in December, of course, we got the concept master plan approved, December 20th. That then led to us working hard to get the core JD. So, you know, that was a requirement for the DEC. The DEC really could not move forward till we got that core JD. So we finally got that in March, and then that moves forward with the DEC. To get the Speedies permit, we needed the Speedies permit because DOH wouldn't sign off until we got that. That Speedies permit is for the full build-out, which is 308,000 gallons per day of flow. And of course, when DEC looks at issuing a Speedies permit, they do look at the whole environmental site and the conversations that we've all had internally and with DEC is that this is a concept plan, not a fully developed site plan. And when they understood that, then they, allowed us to move forward. So
That took a while.
I know you had conversations, and it did help. It was definitely a team effort. We reached out to many people to get some help, and it all worked out. And once we got that sign off from DOH, then we could finalize the conditions for site plan approval on the wastewater treatment plant, which meant filing a subdivision map and then running it up here and getting you to sign. I think we had 6 days left. So thank you to everybody, Pete, everybody. What a remarkable achievement that we pulled off. It just still is amazing. I'm going to write a book about that, Tom. So that gets us to why we're here tonight with that wastewater treatment plant approval. I met with Tad on Thursday morning. Thank you, Tad, for making that happen. And one of the first questions she asked was, are you all set with Don and the wastewater treatment plant building permit? And I got it that day. So
Congratulations.
So we got the building permit. That's another milestone. So we've just been clicking, checking the boxes. So we're very excited about being here tonight to talk about our phase 2. The phase 2 is in the just big picture. It's in the village neighborhood, you know, as we showed last December. The access points, of course, are the main access, right, the light. The north access, the right in, right out that we did for the wastewater treatment plant, will extend that. And then, of course, West Dorsey, which is right now operating as a construction access, but we're going to tie that road up into Main Street and bring it right on down north. Infrastructure, Belfield has its own sewer corporation, the TR Sewer Works, so sewer is provided by us, water is Dutchess County Wastewater Authority. Electric is Central Hudson Gas and Electric. They'll be providing both the electric and gas, and they were very happy to come to the table, but wouldn't get serious with us until they knew there was a chance for residential meters. And once we went to the town and showing them 344 residential meters, they sat down with us and said, now it's in our court. So amazing. Chris sent them the CAD, and they're currently designing the power layout for the project. And once they locate transformers and things like that, we'll obviously coordinate with them to get that done. The area that is defined by this phase 2 is approximately 40 acres. That does include 2.5 or almost 3 acres going up to the St. Andrews and over for the sewer. That is part of this phase. There is no wetlands disturbance in this phase, and in fact, when the Corps issued their JD, they did allow us to keep the fill in the wetlands as a result of putting in the utilities. So there's 2 crossings there that they allow us to keep in there. We're going to take advantage of that, and you'll see in the plan how we routed the West Road in, and I'll show that to you. So Chris, you go to the next one. So I wanted to remind the board, again, this is the overall concept plan, which was approved last December. So we're all familiar with that, worked very hard on getting that worked out with our team of consultants. This was prepared by Hart Howerton. Of course, the village is where our phase is. That's where we're focused. All right, Chris. All right, this is the phase. This was a phase 2 that we presented last December, but the big picture here is the sewer going up, which is what we're doing, and this is comes out to here, down and around, so pretty similar. The idea is that we are developing Main Street. We're going for it, so we're going to take it from here all the way through, come up and then down, link it over here, and then of course with the main entrance going here. All right, Chris. So what I wanted to show is this development mix ratio, which we've submitted. It's part of the package. This is a pretty clean way of showing the way we identified the uses and the buildings were by number. So we have 1 through 1800, and then we identified whether they're residential or commercial and assigned the units, the square footage, so we can take that all the way down. 18 buildings, 344 units, and then the square footage for the residential, commercial. We're adding in the hotel into this phase, the 106, because it's by itself, so we rolled that in. And then we can compute the ratio, which is at 62.8 and 37.2 residential. Okay, Chris? Site plan, like I said, we're going for it, getting the whole main street in, site lighting, trees. What's kind of cool is we brought in pocket parks in between the buildings. Tad wanted to see more details on that, which we will provide as we progress with the plan. We're all aware of the village green, so that's in there. We're going to develop that more. Parking lot is in there. That's known to be in there, but now we had to really drill down and figure it out. So we're working with a concept plan for a year or two. Now we're into the site civil. So we're making it work. There's a difference between concept plan and civil. So we figured out how many spaces we needed in the garage, and it turned out to be 170 per deck. And right now we're showing 2 decks, and we can talk more about that. The development mix, again, the numbers, 1 through 1800. This just simply shows that 1 through 6 is a parking garage with 3 stories of residential above. 7 through 12 is first floor commercial with 2 stories of lofts above. So when you look at these numbers, they identify what the use is. 1300, and we can say it is City Winery. They're coming to Belfield. 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 is the entrance barn with signage. And Mike will be presenting the elevations later on. All right, so what this does is show the phase 2 as we propose it over the concept master plan. And the next one shows it zoomed in, so you can kind of see that we're basically, again, this is a civil drawing in CAD, tied to radiuses and grades over the concept plan that is a concept plan done freehand. So this is in CAD, but it's pretty close where we had designed Main Street to be. It is pretty close. Where you see roads move around, that's mainly because of grading reasons. For example, this here is moved that way because we do not want to disturb the wetlands, so we gave it a buffer, sloped up, that defined where the road edge was. So Main Street buildings, there is a difference in this road design compared to what was originally approved on the ODA map, and I do show that in a couple of slides. The reason why, here we kept the parallel parking, here we went angled, and angled here. We needed to do that because we needed to get to the parking demand. Part of your set includes the parking allocation, and we color-coded everything so you could see that we're not just, fluffing this up. We really nailed it down. And the parking requirement is based on, the spaces per unit, and not only for residential at 1.5, but then on the commercial side, we were using 5 per 1,000. And then whatever we couldn't fit in this area ended up in the parking garage.
You also added a little bit of parking on the outside, ground parking, surface parking, where you changed the road that would go up to the parking garage as well.
Correct. So this road follows that utility corridor. It goes over those wetlands, and you're right, when you look at the ODA, the road's not there. So this was an add. And I did go back and look at the concept plan. We tried to leave, this is a 20-foot buffer, between the garage, so we're going to plant that pretty heavily.
Larry, what are those circles in the setback?
These we're identifying areas for stormwater management. It's not worked out yet, but it's a natural low depression. We went ahead with Annie and marked all what we felt were significant trees along that entire setback. So we'll work with them accordingly. But yeah, that's what these guys are. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. This is the phase 2 by itself without any background. So you can see the road here coming up to the parking deck. What's not here is this connection here coming down and looping. Obviously, you can't do it because of the wetland there. Okay, Chris? Here's the ODA overall map, and it does not show that connection, so that is a difference. It also does, and rightfully Tad brought it up, so this is number 6. So when you look at number 6, you see the profile of the road, and so we'll respond and how it's different. Mainly, it's different for 2 reasons. One, we went to angle parking, so we need a wider width. And the other reason is the sidewalk along the Main Street has to be a minimum of 5 feet. We made it 15. 15 feet is really a good width for retail tenants to have before you get to parking. Okay, Chris? Building heights, we are calculating now at every 10 feet, so that's quite a chore. So we are going through that. Several of them are not going to meet this 46 feet. All the Main Street building heights are met or below 48 feet. But I was sitting down one day and I was looking at this, and we were flying through this back in December, and I go, wait a minute, these numbers don't add up to 46. So they really, depending on, like this 10 feet here, what happened to this 2 feet here? This is a weird configuration here. This really should go across here. That line should come up. So it's really a 48 or 49 foot number. But even with that, we're still going to be a little bit above that. What does not change, I think there was some confusion, are the number of stories. So I think I said 4 on there, but that first floor includes a garage. So it's a garage plus 3. Okay, Chris? Okay, so at this time, Mike, you can, Chris will pull up the building elevations. It's a separate PDF.
Thank you, Larry. Good evening. Good evening. How's everyone doing? Good. This is a great project, isn't it? This is going to be such a compliment to Hyde Park, but really an overall regional project that with such an impact is brilliant. So I want to compliment you. I was on that side of the board saying go.
You used to be.
I used to be, yes, sir, Chairman. So we'll just go through the buildings one by one, and you'll see that the architecture is very eclectic. It's really regional in form, but it really has a flavor of the Hudson Valley. As you can see, overall, we have some gable ends, and it's varied. We didn't want homogeneous architecture as you go through the site itself. We want it to really look like it was evolving through the process in terms of like a village, as it always did. As you know, Hyde Park, Rhinebeck, Fishkill, Millbrook, they always had varied buildings. So
Thank you for putting Hyde Park in that august setting.
I put you first. I didn't put Clinton anywhere near it, Chair. It's only one general store. So this is building 100, and what we did, you can key it in. You can see it here. So what will happen is as we go through, the buildings will be highlighted. So this is the first building. It's all residential. It has actually a bend to it, so it goes around the road itself and keeps the integrity of the corner. You can see again, the architecture is very traditional in form. It has in massing. It has gable ends, varied types of sidings and things that nature. We'll have, you can see here, this is the west elevation. This piece here is more modern, but that's a connector between 100 here and 200 there. So you'll see that we've had a play with that So you get a modern piece that keeps check with the traditional architecture itself. .200 is the sister building to 100. This on the other side of the connector. This south elevation you can see is along this edge here. And this is like, when I say sliver building, it's sort of a sliver building. You'll see the edge, which is here, and that's the west elevation. So 100 is over here. The connector is between, and this is the 200 building. And this also has underground parking. So the 300 and 400 buildings, so to orient everyone, these buildings, 700, 800, 1,000, and 900, this is Main Street. These buildings, 3 and 4, behind the Main Street buildings. These are residential buildings in character and totality. And again, you can see that the flow of the architecture keeps on through. It has a gabled end, has some really nice glass elements through, really a lot of glass. And it, as you see, the Main Street buildings will come up after. 400, this is the sister building to 3. And you can see that, again, 300 would be over here. This is 400. The west elevation up here, east elevation. This is more into the hill. This is more towards the river side, Route 9. So this is 500. So next buildings will be 500 and 600. They are, again, residential in height. They're 3 stories. Again, you can see the complementary architecture as you go through. Again, the architecture really, the fabric of the architecture is varied on purpose. We didn't want something, again, homogeneous that really would look like just not a good thing. So we wanted to make something more interesting, more organic in terms of itself, so the fabric is woven through. Yeah, again, this is 600. That's the sister building to 500. Again, you can see how it all takes shape and comes together very well. Okay, so the next series of buildings, 700, 800, 900, and 1,000 are the buildings that form Main Street itself. So this is the start of it. You can see this is where it is. It's on the northern side of Main Street. We have the residential above, and we have retail on the first floor. The idea is that the first floor residential will be very high in terms of ceilings, a lot of glass, a lot of vibrancy, and the connection to the street itself, and then you have residential over top. We call this Main Street because it is Main Street. It really has the residential over the commercial, and it lends a nice element for the whole site itself. 800 complementary to the 700 on the other side. And again, this is really the predominant elevation side. That's the east side of Main Street, and being the western elevation, again, retail, commercial with residential above it. So we go to 900 and 1,000, and you can see as you go along Main Street here, residential above the commercial, and it, in this case, would be the west side of the building, which is here. We're going to also have commercial, so you can walk through, because you have the Main Street, but then it goes to the parking garage itself. Building 1,000, same thing. As you can see, residential over commercial, varied architecture, varied materials, really very, very nice in context. Building 1100, standalone building. So you have a village green here that will be shown in renderings as we go along. This is on the south side of the Main Street buildings, smaller building, but all residential in form. I'm sorry, with commercial, 2/1. This is 1,200. Again, standalone, smaller building behind, toward the riverside of the Main Street buildings. This is the City Winery building. And the City Winery building is probably one of the closest buildings to Route 9 itself proper. It slopes down. It'll be a great, actually, that'll be a great place to hang out, just saying. So it's really, City Winery is a known entity, a great tenant, great use for the building, and it starts to pick up some of the stonework along the western elevation, tie into the Hyde Park ideals, and it has like a Barnmore feeling to that. This is an interesting building. This is the right here. It'll have a rooftop pool overlooking the green, going down over this. It's really the focal point in terms of recreational and operations for the site itself, from the logistics from the residential piece. But this is the west elevation, so this will be the elevation that'll be along Main Street itself. And that pool, you'll be able to look out over the green and down across the Hudson Valley. So it'll be a really great place to be.
You don't show the pool on the elevation of the building?
Yeah, it's here. That's a glass.
Oh, it's inside.
It's outside, but it's behind the glass wall. So the glass wall is like this high in terms of 42 inches, and then it's behind the glass wall. So you can see. You can't see the pool because it's actually within this, but where it says signage, it's in here.
On
So-
your rendering, yeah.
I think we're trying to match the, what we're seeing up there, there's this overall,
The 3D.
Color picture, yeah.
Oh,
town.
okay. It may have changed.
okay.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. That
Yeah,
makes
I think
sense.
it did change.
Yep.
Yeah. That was
I think it
prior.
was inside there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it looks like it's
yeah.
enclosed
It's just got a
here.
flat roof on this one, and you told me before you have it. Yeah. okay.
Yeah. So we wanted to open up to the sky, make
I'm
it
just
nicer.
going to just interrupt you for a moment and
Sure.
say, this is a problem for this project.
Yeah.
When we keep getting things piecemeal and not updated, and you're like, oh, it changed.
Yeah,
We need to have the most recent stuff over and over again. I know this is an expense because you keep having to print this, but it's my lecture I always say to
Got it.
people before the planning board, if you can make up your mind fully before you get here, it'll happen faster. And if you keep changing as we go,
Yep.
so that's all. Please continue. No, please continue. Go ahead.
thank you.
Or even digital renderings would be great.
Okay.
The digital show better, I think, than what the flat did.
What's that? I'm sorry, Jim.
The digital actually show, I think,
Oh, yeah,
better than what
yeah.
the flat elevations did.
These are elevations, and 3D really like
I know.
pops. You know that, yeah. You're right,
Those are next.
yeah.
So that building, the way it's shown, almost looks like a theater entrance or something, right? Is there like a marquee on? Is that yeah.
This one is commercial.
So that's just a decorative element, not a marquee? Okay.
And again, that's the 1500 building, which is on the northern side of the Main Street. This is the Inspiration Building. It's right here on the site plan, and this is where Tom Mulroy is going to be with Larry Boudreau and overseeing the project.
Right by the water tower.
Yeah.
Be connected with the terrace.
This building is 1800, which is right down towards Route 9 itself, and this one is. And you can see that the idea is to make this like a lot of glass. This will be it's really a folly in terms of a building, in terms of it's a cool building to be there, but it really, the sake of it is to have really an entrance point and a focal point for the whole project as you come up the main drive. It has a lot of glass. It'll have really cool elements in it, the tractor and,
This is the sign barn,
Correct.
and this looks
Okay.
different than what you submitted as well.
this has changed.
And it's labeled as having a loft. It's a two-story building, and it's shown as storage on the chart that Larry referred to earlier. That's page 4, I believe, or
Yeah,
maybe
that, Larry.
longer from Chris.
Okay.
So does it have an actual use and a function? Well, no. Is it a sign or is it a storage barn?
Oh,
No, it's,
You have it labeled under use as a storage, is what I'm asking.
okay, well, the storage was for the tractor and the truck.
In other words, will people be able to walk in and out of it? That's all I'm sort of asking.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes,
Okay,
correct.
thanks.
They're building up here, that's a 1700 building, and that is a real maintenance storage building. That's why I like the barn itself.
So if the bottom one is glass, where's the sign going? Okay.
Yeah, so that's what you would see coming up the drive itself.
So the top one is called the farm barn? In your listings, you have a
Correct.
farm barn, you have a sign barn?
Correct.
The top one is the farm barn?
Correct.
Okay.
That's okay, I can speak. There it goes.
There you go.
Got it. So essentially, the garage right now is 2 levels. For the most part, one level, the world. So it actually has a low elevation. It has some green wall on it, as well as some wood panel. So it's supposed to really start to blend in with the landscape.
I should probably add here that that does not comport with your design guidelines as adopted. The design guidelines, and if you want me to quote, I will, but so they're supposed to be screened to reduce their visual presence. Appropriate ways to screen parking structures include ornamental building treatments, ornamental roof lines, gradually sloping earth berms, green vegetative facades and roofs, and that's just open, so you're going to see parking from there. So this does not comport with what's inside the code. Also, at parking structure roofs, heat island effects should be mitigated through the use of reflective paint, canopy structures, green roof, or solar PV arrays to block the sunlight absorption. That doesn't appear to be done here, so you're going to have to tell us what the mitigative measures are that you're doing to avoid that, because this is all proposed by your team.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at it and come in more conformance. I think that the idea with the green wall starts to do what the guidelines talk
The
about.
green walls, I didn't mention it, but that's already required in here as well.
Yeah.
But you have to do something to the top, I think,
Yeah.
to meet with this.
Yeah.
Other question is, it said future third floor for 540, I think, parking spaces, or
Total.
5 something.
No, total
Total.
is that.
It
So
would
another-
add
No, 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 but that would be a new total, but when are you
Yeah.
going to do this in the future, after people are parking here and using it? That's confusing.
Yeah, how do you add to a garage?
Because you said you were going to have a second parking deck. Did this-
Exactly, so it's shown at 2, and we asked the parking garage consultant, if in the future we want to add a third deck, is that possible? And he said yes.
Wouldn't that violate your required height for all buildings?
No, because I think on the garage is 36 feet, so I think we meet that.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
Yep,
So
but,
Thanks.
it'll be low enough.
I couldn't figure out when you said future.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Good
you
question.
can, it's like modular, you can add to it once people are
You-
parking in it?
It's
and
precast,
using
so
it?
you can,
Yeah.
yes.
There's a way that you could add on, because it's all
It's not
concrete,
unusual.
cast
I
concrete.
didn't know that.
Okay.
See, I learned
But-
something new every time I'm
Yeah.
You don't
here.
deal with
We,
parking garages
um,
that often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this is all moving very quickly.
This is our first parking garage, now that I think about it, in 17 years up here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
We don't have any.
I bet, yeah, not, none.
That's why I didn't know you could just plop something on
Yeah.
top.
Yeah.
But you
Wow.
can see
design
that
for it.
the entrance into the first deck is on the south side, southwest side, and you can see as you move north how that gets buried in there. So that's what we're doing. It wraps around. So,
Yeah. So it's really
So it's
one
below
side.
grade a little bit?
On the,
Yeah.
on the east
Yeah.
side, correct, yeah.
Thank you.
So phase 2, though, is only 2 levels.
correct.
Phase 3 is not part of, the phase 2 of the garage is not part of phase 2 right now.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And just to give dissertation about like that, adding on, there are buildings that are around that you can actually add another floor on. As long as you take in consideration the footings and such, then the structure, that you can actually add another floor, and they're built that way. So it's, in terms of this, it's precast, well, it's cast concrete, and they come precast over and modularized, and they can put the columns right in place, and the holes are drilled, and it works pretty well, actually.
And, yeah, I mean, I know this is not for now, but what do you do with the parking in the meantime? You have to relocate everyone temporarily?
It has to be, managed absolutely, but we did not want to give up on it, so we're meeting with them, I think, tomorrow, on
'Cause-
how the logistics of it.
Right, I mean, once all the businesses are operating, you
To-
have to
totally
find
get it.
200
Totally
places
get
somewhere else. Yeah, okay.
So you could do like half
Close
at
half
one
the
time,
garage.
and do the other half,
Right.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, with the garage, it is a work in progress. We're meeting with them tomorrow to learn more about costs and how to make this thing happen.
Yeah, and that's,
Yeah, what's interesting about that, what this shows is that that third deck is below the finished floor of the adjoining buildings.
Mhm.
So it all works.
The proposed third deck.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Chris, can you flip up the renderings? And again, the renderings are, a work in progress, so you'll get the general feel for what's going on.
Diesel,
Yeah.
this is what we have.
this is the corner building, as you remember. This is the first building we spoke about, and with the enclosure between the two buildings and this clubhouse. This actually has to be updated, as Ann talked about.
That's why we couldn't figure out where it was.
The
so-
pool's right here.
Yeah, okay.
I'm doing a lot of hand waving.
Okay, there's my question.
Yeah.
These sort of plinths of something, I can show you here as well. It's this dark gray, just sort of postmodern column. What is that? Is that just decorative?
And what's the material?
Here?
You got it. That
Those?
vertical element. What is
Yeah.
that?
Right now, they are elements, but they could actually be potentially HVAC, something like that, for the units itself. So we need some pop-outs for that, so we can get outside air.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the material, I know it's not
Yeah, it's
completely done right now
not
because you have to value
finalized.
engineering everything, but
But we're
value
looking,
engineer everything.
yeah, we're looking to use a lot of hardy plank and hardy board itself, based and.
No, we thought this might be ethos when we just looked at it from here.
Yeah, I think it'll be more panelized.
Okay.
So
Not-
it looks
not-
like a board and batten, but it won't be board and batten.
Well, no, hardy plank does make a board and what we've done, used it before, where it's got a plank behind and you have the straps between, so it looks like board and batten.
So less maintenance.
Yeah. So, yeah. Main Street, and the buildings behind, as you can see, there's parking between the Main Street building and the buildings behind. And again, this is the main street. That's like, that's the place to be.
What this shows is one of the pocket parks right there in between buildings 7 and 8. Yeah.
Are you
Where?
putting utilities on the roofs, or are utilities going to be in the building themselves?
Part, they're angled roofs, so we'll have to find space within. Yeah.
'Cause,
Yeah, I mean, if it was a flat roof, it gets more, it
I mean,
lends
some of
itself
them are
more.
flat, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. These are really just show elements. They're not really HVAC or anything of that nature.
Where's the pocket park?
Right here?
We would call that landscaping.
Yeah, that looks like island landscaping.
Some people call it island landscaping.
It'll be more than that because each of the end units on Main Street, that's where you're likely to have a restaurant or a coffee shop or something like that. So there'll be chairs out there, tables out there.
So outdoor seating.
It'll be pedestrian
Friendly.
active.
And the idea is really to give an inset building. They're actually set back, so the pocket parks actually break up the mass of the building pretty well. And again, this is just another rendering view of the same building. That pocket park is right down here, and it continues as you can see the flanking buildings on either side of the pocket park itself. Yeah, this is, again, to the northern side of the site, Main Street over here, coming around, and then going out down the parking area.
So what goes on in the glass section there? Is that, it's hard, I can't really see it. It looks like it might be a gym or it might be someone's living space.
It's really a connector between,
Okay.
so it'll have vertical
That's all.
transportation, connector, that sort of
Thank
thing,
you.
yeah. Another view, as you can see, it's very similar to the other.
Oh, we don't have that one. That's a new one.
Not even looking.
Yeah.
And an overall view of this first phase, the second phase actually, that you can see. Again, that's the it really starts to orient very well on itself. Route 9 is on this axis here.
What does the city winery building look like from the back, from Route 9?
From this
Mm-hmm.
it has like a stone pop out, but it looks like a barn. It's supposed to look like a barn with a stone pop out, so it recalls back to the stone that more of an agrarian winery sort of idea.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, Chairman.
Well, first of all, I acknowledge that you're absolutely right to say that you should have the actual plans that we're proposing
It's
in
okay. I
advance so
discovered
that you
today
can
that my
look
design
at it. So-
guidelines are not the most
Yes.
recent either. I never got the most recent copy of that either.
Okay, well, that'll be in the packet that Larry and I are
Thank
putting
you.
together. I would have sent them today, but I just wanted to make
It's okay.
absolutely
It's
sure
okay.
that it was the final version of the 27th piece that I have in Redwelds in my office, So pardon our enthusiasm. I think we're sort of torn between trying to come before you with a product that's finished enough for you to really appreciate what we're trying to do, but also we want to come here early enough so that you have serious input into the design. Obviously, this board and the town board were very active in working out the design concepts of the concept plan, and we don't want to appear presumptuous in any way of not being here as early as possible. So we did try to get to the best of both worlds, but I guess we missed a submission
It's
that we
okay.
should have
I-
made this morning at maybe like 11:30.
You know what it is this is a big, big project, and trying to wrap my, you know I have a pretty good memory, but
Oh, yeah.
even I couldn't remember all this stuff. I was reading going, oh, yeah. That's why I looked at the parking garage thing after you said in the phone call you weren't committed to the green roof, and I thought, I know I read language in here, and it's right inside the adopted design guidelines that talks about what's important about it and the heat island effect too. So in addition, I was going to say this, but there's a lot of expansive roof up there with no solar panels, no nothing. You're not going to propose anything like that in terms of adding more, generating more energy for the site itself?
Well-
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great suggestion and something that will be considered. Again, right at this point, what we're really doing is trying to really enflesh the concept plan in an actual plan that works. Larry's
with
been-
CAD, as
Do you
Larry
see the
said.
gray hairs that Larry has that he didn't have in December? He's been trying to work out the real plan on the concept plan and you know, grade the roads, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been our goal to date, and we think we have enough of a plan to really get your feedback. What do you think about the architecture? What do you think about putting in glass connectors? with
There's
the-
enough here for that,
That's
don't
another
worry.
thing. So yes, you've always been very candid, let's put it that way. And we appreciate that.
They have solar, we don't know when we can do that. We were trying in the first hotel, it just didn't make sense. They tried it up in Mirabal when they were doing that, it was a disaster. They had to rip it all out with geothermal. So that changed our decision on that. Maybe a central plan at some point to distribute that, but solar's definitely in there. It's, you know, there's huge lead times to that now too, so.
It just needs to be shown on the plans where you want to put them, that's all, because it does require site plan under,
Right,
approval
right.
under our, or final
Well,
development
that's a
approval
good
under our
point.
code.
And we'll, obviously, that's something that would come a little later in our planning. I mean, here, we're talking about like the shape of the buildings, the height of the buildings and things like that. But that's a great comment, and, you know, we welcome any comments that you have. about the design and how you feel that it meets the guidelines as you envisioned them, or what could be done to make it more compliant with that?
Just speaking
Again-
personally a moment, I thought that when I saw the 3D versions, went back to look at the design guidelines, that they pretty much adhere to them myself. That's why I asked about the vertical elements that I thought, I didn't understand what they were, because they're not shown in any of the design guidelines we have. But if they're for HVAC or other things, that makes perfect sense. So it's just a question, that's all. Let me start with our consultants. Ms. Franson, comments? I know that we haven't had, all of us, a large amount of time to analyze everything.
No, we haven't. Just a couple questions and then some reactions. Is there more parking in this concept plan than what was studied, in this plan that was studied in the concept plan? Because we had essentially parallel parking, and now you have this angled parking. I'm guessing that's to provide more on-street parking. But is there actually more than what was anticipated during the concept plan review, or what happened?
The parking that's shown is per the, Belfield Code District. So in other words, 1.5 per each apartment unit. And we did a parking allocation plan that shows where those 1.5 spaces go for each building. So half of them are in the garage, and then the rest are surface. So we identified that. Then on the commercial side, it's 5 per 1,000. And so that's what that plan presented meets that requirement.
Larry, are there more units?
What it doesn't do is shared parking. I think in the
Okay.
concept plan,
Okay.
we put in 25% shared parking. With restaurants going in, of course, they have a different calc, right? Because they go by seats, and so
Right.
it's likely, but we don't know.
Seats and number of employees.
We don't know the restaurant usage exactly, but we're anticipating that it's going to be higher, so we didn't take the 25% or whatever it was allowance to share the parking. We wanted to make sure we had enough parking in there.
Okay, so this may be actually showing more parking than the concept plan.
Because the concept plan took the...
For the shared
correct,
parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did recall that the rooftop was going to be green of the garage, because I recall that the concern was that the dwelling units were looking not down on asphalt, but they were going to look, and parking, but they were going to look down on something green. So that's my recollection of the concept plan.
Bonnie, I think I'll also point out, the code doesn't allow the multi-level parking structures, and I think that was mitigation in order for the concept plan to be approved with a multi-level parking structure.
All right, well, I remember doing this with the planner at Chazen, and I said, understood that we, may need it, and I didn't want us to commit to it, so
I think part of this
Right.
is that there was a concept plan that was approved in December, and so if there are variations or something varies from what was the concept plan, then it's up to the planning board to review it, and then ultimately, if it's a big change, then it's the town board that needs to consider it. But
Yep.
I think we're just trying to figure out the delta between what was anticipated from December and what is actually shown on the plans. And I think that's part of the,
okay.
the questions for this evening. And it's not that it's no, it's that what's the process and how is this different?
Yeah,
From my
I mean,
perspective.
I think certainly this is exactly what this board did with the Belfield Inn to evaluate, that was under the 2007 concept plan, but what the board did is evaluate that in light of what the concept plan had approved, and was it
Because the
consistent or
building
was it
location
not?
just
And to
flipped.
what extent? So that's what you did then, and certainly I agree with everything you said, Bonnie. That's the board's function. I don't think, we may not be at the point of being able to do it finally tonight, because
No.
the plans are still in process, et
process.
cetera. But I think we agree that that's, that will probably be a lot of workshops, maybe some meetings of the consultants to work that out of just what it is, and not only how is it consistent with the approved concept plan, but how can this be the the best plan it can be. I mean, because the concept plan specifically, and I highlighted it and circulating the approval documents to everybody today, the town board made it very clear to protect this board's authority in reviewing the final development plans to modify locations of buildings or whatever was done to make sure that that it met the standards and was most environmentally protected, so.
The area between the parking garage up to Route 9, and especially the setback area, right now you're into the Main Street phase with the garage and the residential. What is the timing for the front part? What you see from Route 9, the setback, what was described as how it would be landscaped, based on what Annie was saying, et cetera. Like, how does that relate and when does that happen?
So we don't, we're talking phase, the next phase. I mean, we don't, right now it's left undisturbed from a grading plan. When you look at it, you can see where we tied grade to that. So we can, talk about that further, but we tied grade as fast as we could. We have an idea what we want to, go there, still working on it.
Yeah, I think there was like a ring road in the front, like a parallel road to 9.
There is.
And then you had the surface parking, and there were actually almost like little buildings that could be carports.
Yep.
And is that still happening or not?
Yeah, that will happen in that next phase, because that carport goes right at the western edge of the parking.
So that's still additional parking you need for?
Yes. Yeah.
Would it be to serve this area, or
No.
what is it serving? Just the
Future
general
phase.
public?
Future phase.
Which phase is it?
Well,
The one that's to the north?
to the west.
To the west. Well, to the west is a setback.
Yeah, I'll show you.
It's a little hard to,
I like this thing.
Thank the supervisor behind you.
Good job. Right, yeah.
yeah.
Go down here, Chris. Up, up, up. Yeah. Let's try this one here.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
It's
so.
that thin orange line that you can barely see.
Is this okay,
right there.
this plan? to
Yes.
show? Okay.
Yes.
So this parking will come down to here, up to that buffer line, and again, this is a hand sketch drawing, and it was a little off. The buffer line is more like here. This will be right along that, actually it's more over here. This will be right along the edge of the western edge of the parking.
So that parking that you're going to put in at a future date, what is it serving?
It's gonna serve here.
Okay, so the north.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I was asking, because I think you
Okay.
said west, and I was like, I don't think.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so the north, okay.
Yep, here.
Let me
Got
just interrupt here for a moment. This
Yeah.
brings up the issue that parking is not supposed to dominate any site. That's just a site plan standard throughout town. You were disguising it by having landscaping and the little, I guess, carports or whatever they are, the
Yeah.
little orange line down there.
Yes.
But that's not going to exist right now, so you're going to see parking from Route 9? Is that what you're saying?
No, this,
You have
Chris,
street,
can
you have
you?
street parking in front of the parking
Yeah,
garage. on the-
this is remaining undisturbed. We're gonna tie grade right here. So this all stays, all the trees that are there right now.
Well, earlier you said you marked significant trees. I assume that
No,
meant you were
we-
going to take out the understory.
We marked them along here. At some point we will, but we won't now. There's no need to do it now.
Okay. Just making sure that you don't do it before you come in for your next phase, so that we
Totally
don't have
understand.
out the parking, that's all.
Totally understand.
I think it was at the site visit that we had in October
October,
20th,
yeah.
maybe, that when we were there in front of where the garage was going to be, that I think it was planning board members who were there realized that to protect from noise from Route 9
All of it.
and any views that the board preferred leaving the setback area naturally landscaped, and the understanding was that only diseased trees and things like that would be cleaned out, as opposed to the farming,
Right.
horticultural,
Right. But we also
agricultural
have the stormwater
Concerned
maintenance
lines that was
measures.
going to be,
We have
that
stormwater
Annie had
maintenance measures in
originally
there as well,
proposed.
though.
Yeah,
We have
we-
stormwater maintenance
we
measures
will-
in there
Yes.
as well. That will involve removal of.
Yes.
We will work with the board, so that
Of course.
everybody's comfortable. You know, we don't want people driving on Route 9 looking up at a parking lot. Totally get it.
So here's what
I
I'll show
sense
you.
another
So I
site
think-
visit
Again,
coming
on
on.
this digital, which may not be updated, you have green lawn, then surface parking, right in front. No hiding this. So
Yeah.
I'm just looking at your materials to
We're
comment on
probably
it.
just foreseeing
Well
future
mowed
phases.
green lawn.
Yeah,
We
well-mowed
should be
green lawn.
clearer, yeah.
Okay.
So I think probably the big picture comment that I have is that the concept plan itself, the original one, looked organic, the one that Howerton put together. And that organic sense came from my perspective, having a series of smaller buildings. So for instance, if we look at that collection of residential, right when you come in on the east side of the north, south access, all the way to kind of the south, that, if you look at that concept, it was 4 buildings. And there would be landscaping, and there'd be sidewalks around it. Now it's 1 building that's all attached. And that pattern of building development kind of continues throughout this phase. My recollection of the guidelines was that there were going to be limits on the length of the buildings because you wanted to have this breakup, and you, again, wanted to have this sense of, something having evolved and being organic. The connectors are lengthening the appearance of the building because in as much as they're showing as, on a rendering as something that's clear and not opaque, the reality is it is a building and it will read opaque when it's built. And the linearness of it is, again, not looking like it evolved. There's a symmetry to some of the design, so I like the mix of the materials and how it changes up. But if you look at one of the buildings along Main Street, it's actually, each of the components are actually identical. I think there's only one portion of the buildings where one is a gable and one is not a gable. So they're looking actually pretty similar. So the material mix is good, but if you read the whole building, it's looking very symmetrical. So, in looking at something that's symmetrical, something that's very long and it's reading linear, I feel like we're missing a little bit of that organic feel that this was going to be a hamlet. And I'm sure there are ways to deal with that. And from my perspective, if we're going to stay with the concept and kind of what that was, I think you need to do a little bit more refinement or some refinement on the buildings. But that's my reaction, and, of course, the planning board and ultimately town board, if there's any changes, have to weigh in on that. So thank you. But I think otherwise, the framework with the layout of the roads and the garage and where you have things are where you envision them in the concept. But as you said, now we're getting to the engineering. Rubber meets the road. And, how can we kind of marry the two things together, from my perspective? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Franson. Ms. Moss, any comments?
No, I've talked a little bit to Larry about how to stay. I've talked a little bit to Larry about grading and limits of disturbance. The linear nature, and in the renderings, the buildings all appear on a flat surface from east to west and north to south. And I think that's a factor of the rendering, because the elevations do show slight changes in elevation. with a building that long and the connector, it's kind of hard to step it. Some of the concept plan sketches show very tight corners and stairways, little entryways that are created in the between the buildings. And I think that when the buildings get combined or in a rectangular fashion, even with the in and out, they are still so long that I think you're missing that organic component. And of course, we need to phase it for disturbance.
Thank you. Mr. Sotero, comments?
Well, we all know that the engineering is the most important aspect of this project, so I'll try to go temper my enthusiasm at the moment. No, but this is a really cool plan. I mean, I've been around the town a long time, and this is really, really cool. So I hope I get to see a lot of it, built. So I don't really have any comments at this point. I mean, the only thing that I would say is, Larry, as your team is like developing some grading and some drainage, let's have some meetings like ahead of time so that we can work together. So that you're not going through and full designing something and then we come up with, oh geez, well, what about this? So let's we'll work together on that. And like Tad's going to be like involved in that because stormwater is very near and dear to her heart.
She came up with good suggestions.
And she had a good point about the grading. I know that the plans look like it's all a flat site, but and I'm sure that that's stuff that you're looking at. So.
Right. And the other thing we have to do is manage the cut and fill balance.
Right.
And that's, there's cut, fill, balance, and rock. All these things come into play.
So the only other thing that I'll add, just having gone around and seeing a lot of these similar developments being built, is and one thing that I don't like that I see is that when some of the buildings are built, the construction staging areas for the next building are right there, and it just seems like there's got to be a way to keep construction staging areas more away from where you're finishing up buildings and where people are going to occupy. And I'm not going to mention any one in particular, but but it's just there's stuff all over the place, and it's God, you can't clean some of it up. But anyway,
Agreed.
So that's all I got to say at this point. There's not that much to look at, but we're available. We should get together as you're developing things so that we can
Right.
move this along, and I think
Right.
it's a really, really cool,
Thank you.
project, so.
Thank you, Peter. Ms. Polidoro, any comments?
So just want to I do have some comments, but I'll start with just giving the board some guidance because
Thank you.
we're reviewing a final development plan under an approved concept plan that was approved by the town board with input from the planning board. And so just a reminder of all the different documents that constitute the concept. There was an overall concept plan, there was a program concept plan, there was a circulation and trails plan, a program summary by neighborhood plan, areas of natural interest, site section, and conceptual water main. So the board, it's now your job to go take what's being proposed now and look at each of those separate documents, which the applicant's gonna, I guess, bind for you and provide, and see where this concept, meets with it, or any areas that don't meet with it. And then in areas that don't meet with it, then we need to talk about what your jurisdiction is. In some cases, there's already built-in variances. So, for instance, if they want to build more single-family homes and they want to build fewer lofts, they can do an internal switch of 10% without us having to amend anything. And so that's okay. If that's a change, we can approve that and move forward without much fanfare. But other things may require more procedure. Going back to the town board for a review, going to the zoning board for a variance potentially. And so, the first step is to really dig into these plans and identify what's consistent with the concept plan and what's not consistent, or, maybe not totally consistent. So that's how I would approach this. And then just some big comments. For me, it would be helpful when you come in with the next set, if you did a chart with a tally, almost. Like, for instance, the overall master plan allows a total of 344 rental units. I believe you're gonna use them all up right now in the village. So if we have that running chart that says, you know, master plan total allowed 344, phase 2, 344, remaining for future phases, 0. So when you come back in with phase 3, phase 5, phase 7, we already have this tally. And I think we should do that with everything, because you are allowed a certain number of commercial square feet, you're allowed a certain number of single-family homes. And I just think that will help, because this project is the biggest that the town has seen in a very long time, and maybe will for a very long time. And, you know, boards could change, consultants can change, and I just think record keeping is going to be really important. So as we move forward, it's easy to review. That's one thing. Second, I do agree, I don't think this barn needs a variance. It was called out in the concept plan specifically, so I think we're okay there. And then just this ratio of non-commercial to commercial. I know that we had discussions about maintaining a certain ratio during each phase. So what was allowed total was 60%, 40%. And right now, I think we're at like 62-37 with this phase. And I just need to go back and maybe talk to Jennifer about how we account for that change per phase.
It's actually a requirement in the code. It's written that the percentage must stay the same in every phase.
So we're a little off, and just something to keep in mind as we go forward. So, I mean, we'll have more specific procedural conversations. Sure. Jennifer and I are going to have to talk about seeker and procedure, but big picture, there's a lot for you guys to dig into right now.
Thank you.
Could I just respond? I
Yes,
think
please.
the idea of the tally is really, really important, because we now have a number of years between the subphase 1A and now, and keeping track of these things is very important. I think the chart that Larry showed in his PowerPoint could be the basis of that kind of a tally. How many, keeping track of the units and keeping track of all these things. And probably it's a good idea that if and when a final development plan approval is issued by the board for phase 2, it would be good to attach that tally to it as part of it, so it's kept in the records for our descendants.
Can you enlarge this for the future?
Yeah.
The chart that Jennifer just referred to as being the essential, because even with my strongest reading glasses, I had to struggle to read that little percentage down there. I thought, those sneaky people, they're not doing 60-40. That's why I can't read it. It's just easy. It's just my old aging eyes.
We'll make it 11 by 17.
It just, if you could just enlarge it so it fills up more of this page, because the numbers were really hard to see. That's all. So let's start to my left. Ms. Weiser, comments?
Well,
I know it's big.
I know, I can't breathe. But I am just really glad you guys are back here, and it's just wonderful to see this starting to move forward. So, in general, though, I'm going to need the time it takes to you know, compare the concept plan to what we're seeing. I need to like reconcile the differences, because this does have a much different feel, as Bonnie pointed out, more linear, less organic, less, you know, not such, as buildings occurring in time. So I just need time to like look at what we had in our mind's eye, and then find a way to make recommendations to amend to make these look like the village that we're hoping to see. And then on this, I just have one question. On this building here, is that parking down there? Where are you? That there.
Speaking of eyeglasses.
Yes.
That's parking?
Yes.
Okay. You know me and my 4 stories. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Ann. Mr. Waters?
Well, it's just a little too premature for me to comment, so I have to go through things, and this way I just
Understood.
make a good point.
Can you imagine putting those things together?
I do it all the time, so.
It was quite a bit of work.
Thank you, Rob.
That was
yes.
Yep.
Rob is an
Ms.
architect.
Wasserman?
Yeah, yep.
It's only the first meeting, so.
Yeah, I know, no, I know, I got these materials about an hour ago. So, first of all, it's very exciting. I mean, there's no other way to look at it, and really looking forward to working with you in an iterative process. I think that we have great consultants, they all had great comments, I agree with them all. And thanks for the guidance, because it's sort of where do you begin, and what is our task at hand here, and how much flexibility do we have to allow them to veer. So I'm acutely aware of what it takes to go from concept as you go through the refinements, and so I understand that, and hopefully I do agree with Ann's comments and others on the architecture of those connectors. It was jarring to me. And we did have a lot of discussion about linear, how long can something be before,
Not a football field.
I think that was it. And I had a question if the impervious area changed because the parking with the angled parking, so you don't have to answer that right now, but I know that's part of the engineering, but I have a feeling there's more impervious area and no green roofs, so I'm just kind of looking at these green issues. Connectors are jarring, I think. And my last comment is, for now, is please, when you're designing it, I hope you're designing something realistic that when the numbers come in, because we know it's happening, that we're not going to have a value engineering mess here. And think about those materials and what you're doing. I mean, I know what your goal is, right? I get what the goal is. But there's a lot going on here, and I am concerned we're going to spend all this time on it, and then the numbers are going to come in. And you did a great job with the inn. We had very minor value engineering. But that's something that's on my mind right now, too.
Just to weigh in on everyone's comments, I pulled up the bulk table, and this may not be the final, but there were limits on the length of buildings. 200 feet if it's mixed use, and 100 feet without a massing break, or 300 overall for a standalone rental building.
And
So,
the 300 was supposed to be an L, not 300 across.
well,
So
there's
it's
no,
what we
in your
promised.
table, it didn't give us a length, it gave us a height. So I
Okay.
think we just need to make sure that these buildings are complying with those dimensional standards.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, Stephanie. Vice Chair Dexter?
I also agree with the comments of our consultants and my colleagues. This does look quite fabulous, though. And
Don't hold back.
no, I'm driving around and I see other visions being implemented, and this does not look like it has been rubber stamped with the same thing, which so many other attempts at creating little villages have been doing. And so I can see that you have been trying to make this not look like it's a rubber stamp. But there's still some rubber stampishness to it. And some of it, I think, is just color, like the way some of the color repeats, like it repeats and is so repeatable that maybe just color changes could go far to making this look very different, or just really changing, adding in, I see lots of paint. It needs a little bit of chaos theory thrown onto it, just to, like, I like things in order. I like things ordered. But for this, I would love to see just something that is just very different. Use a completely different material on one of the buildings, and so that when you're looking at it, you're not going, "Oh, look, it's." You can see the symmetry. Because I think that just with some of those changes, they could look drastically different. It's just that the way, there's like a rose color, and it just.
Which elevation are you looking at?
So I'm looking at Main Street.
And the
Okay,
building
okay,
behind
okay.
it?
And the building behind it, and so I have a rose and white Main Street, and then I have a gray and white area behind it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you have articulated the roofs all different, and there are different windows, and so you have spent a lot of effort to make it different looking. I think those colors are making it look,
You think what?
the colors,
Yeah.
the repeating of the colors. So anyway, I'm like, if you got rid of that rose color
Or just used it less.
or used it less, or, you know, just made it like, oh, look, there's one building that has some rose on it. But see how it's very,
That's the symmetrical.
That's
very
It makes it- it
symmetrical,
makes
which
it look
makes
as
it look
though-
less organic.
Yeah, it makes it look as though it was built all at one time rather than organically over a few years, or over a
Yeah,
decade or so.
and just by mixing materials and literally throwing in something that, there's only one of them. On Main, like on Main Street, there's one brick facade on Main Street.
Yeah.
Right,
go-
and
would
that,
go far.
and this is the rendering that, when I was saying it looks symmetrical, the primary difference is, you know, the two white units, one has a gable front and one doesn't. But other than that, it's not reading as if it's articulated somehow.
Yeah.
So I think
what, Bunny?
reading as if it's more articulated.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
like
very
there's a
even. It's-
symmetrical,
yeah.
right? So, and I think that's something that can be dealt with. It's
Yeah.
just, you know,
Yeah.
a little bit more work on that, and, yeah.
But I can really appreciate, I think if you're an architect, you have to look at the symmetry and you have to look at the balance, and to be asked to be a little unbalanced is gonna, it could be quite difficult.
We
you
can
know?
do that.
I'm not saying anything about you.
The audience at home can't hear you if you're going to keep talking, if you come up with the microphone.
He said they're gonna take a look at it and play with materials.
So we certainly can take a look at the textures and the colors and make some variations to it, and maybe make some standout buildings itself in terms of the elements, in terms of the cladding, so that it really, they pop. So we'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Mr. Guercio.
Well, it's kind of hard for me to really have any comments on this. It's really the first time I'm seeing a rendering. It's hard for me to have any comments because it's the first time I'm really seeing any rendering since I'm fairly new. And this looks like it was done in November, the original rendering, but I'm excited. I mean, I think this is a fantastic asset to the town once it gets built. I mean, it's tough to make things look old and different when you're building something new. Plus, this looks incredibly expensive to build. And one of the things that goes through my mind is what's going to happen once you leave? Who's going to take responsibility for the roads?
Interlocking HOAs,
Who's going? Yeah, HOAs. I
interlocking
figure.
property associations. That
What
was all set
about-
up.
What about the, I guess, the maintenance, et cetera? And then how do you get between the buildings? I see these glass enclosures. Will they be secure locked because there's going to be residents living in those buildings? Are people going to be able to pass through to get to the other stores behind? How walkable is it between the buildings? Other than that, I mean, not being able to, have to compare versus the other plan to see what was agreed to and what's allowable. Again, I'm in support of it. So.
Thank you, John. So you've heard a lot of comments tonight. I'm just going to go ahead. I already talked about the commitment to a green roof. I'll also here add in for the record and just for the edification of my colleagues, particularly the newer ones. DEC required us to analyze green infrastructure more thoroughly about 7 years ago, 8, somewhere in through there. This was all part of the stormwater management practices that we're supposed to get more involved in. And part of green infrastructure is encouraging the use for photovoltaic panels, et cetera, on locations. And with a site like this, except for maybe if you're going to be in the new hotel, or the second hotel, and if it's proposed, no one's going to be looking down to see any panels on this. So I think you have lots of opportunities here to help provide more green. The other thing is also, like I said, the parking deck is supposed to be more screened to reduce its visual presence. It didn't appear that way to me when I saw the elevation. I know that's still under consideration though. Also, in the design guidelines, the parking deck is supposed to have EV charging stations. Again, that was proposed by you guys. The other questions that I have really are about procedure, and that's why I kind of mentioned this during our phone call for Victoria and Jennifer to work this out, because what is the process for, say, the building lengths? If we look at the glass connectors and it's creating a length longer than 200 square feet or 200 feet, does that go to the ZBA for a variance? Does it go back to the town board because it was legislatively enacted? I don't know. The building heights, if the maximum is supposed to be 46 and some wound up being taller or whatever, is that a variance they go back for? Is that something that we have the discretion to decide? I don't quite.
We will provide you answers.
Thank you. Because having worked with both of you for now well over a decade, I trust both of your genius minds, honestly, to come to an agreement that will be legally defensible. That's what I'm really always looking for.
Lots of flattery tonight.
Oh, no, come on. You guys are two of the best land use lawyers there are. I mean that literally. I don't get anything out of complimenting you, so let's be honest. There's an issue that again, also the residential ratio, 62.8 is really 63, 37.2 is really 37. You're violating it by 5%. That seems substantial in my thoughts. But at the same time, I understand that you don't want to lop off a residential building. You want to do them all at the same time. It makes sense. So we just have to work our way through that. And then last, we do have something that we've kicked down the road over and over again, postal boxes. I don't see any mailboxes on this thing, and you guys are the ones supposed to be checking to see if the postal carriers will actually go down private roads. If not, you're going to need to show something.
Yep.
If you recall the original plan that we approved back in 2007, you were supposed to have a small substation for, I know, I can't believe I said that, that's 15, wow. At any rate, but you're supposed to have like a sub-office there, so that should be worked out now, I think, because you don't want to start building and go, oh, we don't have a way for people to get mail, because that's going to affect the ability of your rentals to be rented and your sales to be sold. That noted, I want to echo what every person up here said. Thank you for investing in our community, because this is a huge investment. I mean, huge. And yes, when I first saw the design guidelines that Howerton were putting forth, I thought, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. So it's going to be a beautiful site. No one is using the terms or using the actual names of the other sites that people have artfully referred to, but I think this looks a lot better than the other ones I'm thinking of right now, and you all know what they are too. This does look more organic. It also looks a lot more polished. It looks like something that belongs across from the CIA campus to me. And the CIA is one of our crown jewels, not just in Hyde Park, but in the county. To have something that will go across from this, that's going to be like a visual echo of it, not in every way, but I mean, if you think about the dorms they have, which are kind of Adirondack, but modern farm too, like you're going with here, modern rural, it's going to be a great entrance into town, and that's one of the guidelines for Bellafield too, is to provide that wonderful gateway entrance. And I think you're achieving it. That's why I was bringing up the idea of that parking in front of the parking garage, because I don't think you want to see, the first thing you come in and see would be parking. But I also know that we have to work on this, and we'll call them sub-phases even within the phase 2 stuff. Because I can't quite wrap my head around how you're going to get all that stuff done, how it's going to happen building to building, but we'll get there. No, we'll get there. So those are kind of the broad comments that I have. I do want to say that I agree with what Ann said. I hadn't thought about it, and remember, I'm matchy Michael, as we all know. I like symmetry and I like matching colors, let's be honest. But after she said that, I'm looking going, you know what, it is very symmetrical. And then when Bonnie pointed it out that the only two differences are the gable on one building, and I appreciate that Michael McCormick, the architect, said, let's take a look at this again, because if the goal really is to make it look as though it kind of somehow evolved over the years, and rather than being put up like Disneyland, then you might want to do a little bit more changes in materials and colors. I don't think the shapes of the building have to change. I think it's more just how to make them look more different than what they are by repeating the same colors. Otherwise, I also want to just point out that since we've now gone on record, really excited about City Winery. I've said that before to you guys privately, but now that it's public, really, really excited. For anybody who might be watching on television, City Winery is not just a venue for food and drink, it's also performances. So this is going to be a big thing about another thing about the goals for Bellafield was it'd be a draw for outside the immediate area. This is one more way to draw outside the immediate area, plus the hotel. You're really meeting the guidelines. So I'm excited about it too. I didn't want to spill the beans at first, but probably already knew. But to see this go up in this first phase, I think it's going to be a big game changer for us, and as Mr. McCormick said, for the region as well, because this truly is mixed use. not just playing around with mixed use, like some gift shops and coffee shops. You have some bigger things in here that are going to make a big difference for us, hopefully for our tax base, and I think to help draw more residents here too, because we could all, most of the towns up here have, except for COVID people from the city fleeing up, we're still having an out-migration, and we need to have more of an in-migration up here. I can say that also looking at schools everywhere, because birth rates are going down, enrollment's going down, so we need to have more people live here, and this is going to attract them, I think. So, next steps, because you know I always like to think about what the next steps are. You guys are going to keep refining this and want to come back to us? We'll just keep
Yes, and I
workshopping?
think in the meantime, let's progress this idea of any thoughts. We'll get right on the points that you've raised about the similarity. I think Victoria and I will talk on process. I think maybe we may call and suggest some workshops
Absolutely. Yes.
to just discuss some design ideas and how things can be
It'll be easy to
done.
refer to the concept plan that we've all discussed, so the examples are right there. You
Yeah.
don't have to start digging.
Yes, exactly. But there's the economic circumstances that Stephanie mentioned too, and we
Noted.
don't want to be leading everyone on and I think everyone knows how suddenly this rise in prices of construction materials came about. It was a shock to everyone, and we're living in a very volatile markets for all kinds of things. So we hear what you're saying about the design. I think let us go back and do what we can in addressing that in an efficient way and in a forthcoming way, because we all know we have to live in the real world, but we do want to, we presented the concept plan because we believed in it and we wanted it. So I think too, we have to understand the limits of a visual representation on a two-dimensional piece of paper as compared to three-dimensional, but I think you made very good points about similarity and patterning when you're looking at the overall, that maybe we can bring a little more individual personality into the buildings. I don't know if I'd really trust Mike McCormick saying, throw a little chaos in here. I don't know, Mike.
I said it.
That was,
I said it.
It was Ed who said, tell him to use more chaos.
Yeah, believe me, I know Mike, and
You think it'll be
a little
okay?
chaos will be okay.
Chaos is his middle name.
It's making me uncomfortable.
Right.
No, I'd like the process ironed out, because I was speaking to Councilman Lombardi earlier today, and I don't think that the town board wants us to be,
Back and forth.
no.
Right.
You were polite enough and kind enough to jog all our memories by saying, look, you already have these specific abilities. Now that I read that, I thought, okay, there's a lot that we don't have to worry about. It's really more, does it have to go back to the ZBA for variations, or can we make some of these decisions ourselves? Because that's not really clear. I think you guys can find a way to make it clear for us. As I
Do our
said,
best.
as long as it's legally defensible, that's all I care about. Literally. So, no,
Well, we want it to make sense, too.
it makes sense, yes, but making sense will make it legally defensible. So, so we'll just wait to hear from you guys back again?
Yeah, my thought is, we have a lot of comments here tonight. What I want to do is reissue the drawings to the board. Those are, what's that?
Nothing, keep going.
They're the elevations, just so you have everything current, okay?
The only one I really saw was the pool in the clubhouse, when that's changed.
Yeah,
Not substantially, but
so-
changed enough that I thought Ann and I were like, where's that building? What do you mean?
Where's
So-
that pool?
Yeah, no, understood. And then Tad and I met, and there's some things that she's looking for too, so we'll get them updated. And
I neglected to add as well that I like the idea of the really wide sidewalk.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
15
really,
feet.
really, really like that, because that encourages exterior activation
Yes,
by
it
people
does.
sitting outside, whatever. And also, one of the charms about going to Rhinebeck, in addition to the fact that it's got this sort of look that did happen over many, many decades, if not centuries, is they have that big wide sidewalk in front, so that it encourages people to walk because you're not running into anybody. I mean, I think this is going to make a big change in terms of how people want to, as you just said, one of you, Main Street's the place to be. I think that's what's going to happen, is people, by seeing others around them, even with COVID, people thinking they need to be socially distanced, they still want to be around people. I mean, if you go to any of the restaurants up here, where they have exterior dining, that fills up, even in the heat like it is right now, people are still eating outside.
Right, right.
So, and I think that's part of that's COVID.
That's a very good point, because can you imagine just being the minimum 5 feet? You're going back and forth.
It's
You're
too
not
narrow for what you
stopping.
have.
Right.
I mean, that's what creates the charm of that village internal feeling, is that you can walk around. I mean, remember when we did our site walk on the 20th, you were shooting up and we could actually look and say, you were like, we're in the middle of the street,
Yep.
and it's right there.
Yep.
So we could see all of that. It was very helpful to take that site walk as well.
That was
So,
a perfect day.
Yes, it was.
and a perfect birthday for me.
That's right, that's right, it was your birthday.
Yeah, that was my birthday, was here, and then earlier, it was like 8 hours of planning board that day, so.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, but it was a nice way to celebrate. So at any rate, we'll wait to hear back from you guys, and as always, offline meetings possible.
Great.
We understand that. You know the drill.
Fantastic.
So, thank you guys again. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. It was
Yes,
nice to
thank
meet you all
you.
tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tom, you're awful quiet tonight. You all right? Okay.
Yes. The last item on the agenda is a request for a site plan waiver. This is for heat pumps located at 17 Bedart Place. This is not directly visible from either historic site or from the river. And it's been recommended by the zoning administrator. Do you have any questions for this?
Nope.
I believe Stephanie, now that she's back, is going to sign this.
Thank you. Okay, Francois Decker and Stephen Bard, 17 Bedart Place, site plan waiver. July 20th, resolution 2022-29. Whereas, a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Francois Decker and Stephen Bard for installation of ductless mini split heat pump systems on the property associated with the single-family home requiring a building permit, and whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the building permit received by the Building Department April 26, 2022, and per the request of the Planning Board dated June 28, 2022.
Seconded, Rob Waters.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. And may I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We were stuck there.
And thank you to the town board for providing the resources to televise this meeting as well.
Thank you, Tony.
You're one and only. Thank you.